I like to fiddle with wood. I get a kick out of it. And there's nothing I can't do when it comes to fiddling with wood. It flows wherever it wants to go, and you have to be patient enough to straighten that grain to suit the item that you're making. And if you're not patient, you're going to take out a chip where you don't want a chip to be. So patience is the main thing. Every piece of wood you touch needs patience. And if you're not patient, it's not going to come out right. So patience is the first thing you need. Skill with your hands, second thing. If you don't have those skills, you're not going to make it in this business. So I think those two are about the main two that are important. If you don't have the patience, it doesn't make sense to even touch the wood, because the woods can make you mad.
All the way to Baylor's Bay, fish and taters every single day. They used to sing and dance as they went along, singing a happy but a teasing kind of song. Yeah, man.
Making something out of nothing, that's what appealed to me. I took a piece of balsa wood and used to make boats. Took a matchbox and made a go-kart. I like to fiddle with things and make something out of nothing. My name is Jeremy Johnson. I'm a carpenter, cabinet maker, craftsman, carver, lathe worker. I like to fiddle with wood, and because of that, I do it all. We own the Village Carpentry Limited on North Shore. Been since 1980. We do all sorts of things here. We're all-rounders.
My name is Milton Hill. I do cedar bark. My medium is cedar bark. Ships and personal artifacts, whatever the commission is. When I was a teenager, back then in the 50s, they sent you to an apprenticeship, or trade they called it back then. My parents, they sent me to Rhodes Rattery. He lived in Devonshire, Loyal Hill. He built boats. He would give you a block of wood, and he said, now you gotta carve this and use your imagination. Give you a piece of sandpaper and a lathe chisel and a wooden mallet, and you just shape what you wanted. Back then, everything had to be done by hand. You'd get it from Friday to Saturday. When you took it back, if you didn't have it right, he'd take a yardstick and crack you. But that's my introduction to doing ships, you know, model making, actually. A model is just a miniature of the original thing. So we had to do that first, you know. If you knew how to make the model, make the frames, everything, then you could upsize it. Back then, they did templates for that, so everything was cut by hand. You just marked it out, scribed it out, cut it, and you bolted everything together and then assembled everything, almost like a puzzle. They were in sailboats, they were motorboats, basically. They built quite a number down there.
Wood sculptures is a medium that I kind of fell in love with myself. In art school, you're taught all mediums, painting, drawing, and wood sculpture as well as metal sculpture. But wood sculpture is what appealed to me personally, and that's what I do. My name is Chesley Trott, and I'm a wood sculptor and also a teacher. I lived in Bermuda all my life, that's 81 years, and I'm still trying to teach and do a bit of wood sculpture. I started as a painter. I had an auntie who taught me oil painting, and from there I got a love of art, and I went to the Ontario College of Art in Toronto, Canada, and I also did 1 year at Ealing College in London. All of it related to sculpture. I have a sort of an affinity to wood. I decided to work with wood because it's not cool like bronze. It's a touchy sort of a substance, and I just enjoy working with wood more than any of the other mediums.
My father wanted me to be a mason, and he tried to get me to be a mason by taking me on jobs with him. Well, I said to myself, I'd rather shovel sawdust than shovel rubble. So I started fiddling with a penknife and a piece of wood, and I liked it to the point where I became a carpenter. I studied it in school. I started working at carpentry at the age of 14, and I used to paddle all the way Cedar Hill from Devonshire to work. I apprenticed with Mr. George D. Trott, that used to own this business, and Mr. Clement Lesper, that used to own the business in Cedar Hill. And I worked there for a while, came here when I was 16 years old, and left when I was 21 to start my own business. It was Village Craft Shop, and I changed the name to Jeremy Johnson's Village Carpentry Limited. But we still have a bit of the craft shop name because of the showroom we have outside.
I bought a house back in the late 80s, early 90s, had quite a large yard, and so everybody knew that I did boat repairs. You know, people would say, oh, can you come and fix this, and you come and fix that. And I'd go and do it. We had the large yard, and then people would just bring the boats. We want you to fix this, and they would bring the boats. And so I'll put the boats in the yard, fix them, and then anytime the family wanted gifts or something, I would do gifts like whatever the request was. It was, Milton can make it, and I'd just make it. No matter what it was, I'd do it. And then it was 89, my son used to do lots of carving. He said, Dad, you're carving this stuff and giving it away. He says, why don't we start a business? And so I took off from there.
Right now we are at the Art Center at Dockyard in my little workshop. I got a studio here when I retired from teaching, and I guess it's been about 15 years now. But I don't use it as much now as I used to. I just come here maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I've started art teaching, and I've been doing it ever since I came from art school quite a long time ago. And now I do it as a hobby more than as a profession. I taught in the elementary schools, I taught in high schools, and I teach at the prison 2 days a week, 2 hours at a time. I'm just beginning to do some work with my son Chet, who is the owner of the Gem Cellar. Sometimes we work together in that I'll do the woodwork part of a piece and he'll do the silver part. Just recently did a piece for the National Trust. It was a trophy. So I did the turning of the base and he did the palm tree at the top in silver. I have ideas that I want to express and I just do them, and sometimes they sell and sometimes they don't. But I have the satisfaction of expressing what I want to say. My style of sculpting is a sort of a semi-abstract. I don't do realistic pieces anymore. However, if you look close enough, you'll find some relationship between the forms that are expressed within that piece of cedar.
When we have a special job to do, there's certain items you look for. Like for instance, if we're doing a curved handrail, sometimes we look for a curved branch of a tree, and we would use that. Or if we're going to do a special door, well, any straight log would do. So we would pick the one that is the size that we need to get out the job that we're looking to complete, and we would use that. but sometimes you have to hand-pick your wood, especially because of big nuts, small nuts, no nuts. So if you want a piece with no nuts, then we're going to be looking for a while.
I usually work on multiple pieces. I get a feeling for a piece for a while, and I may work on it for a while, and then sometimes you lose interest in it, and you have to put it down for a while and look at it, and then you get inspired again. And so I have maybe several pieces going at the same time. The tools I use are basic wood sculpting tools. I use mainly the mallet and the gouge. And I cut saws and chainsaws. I use the bandsaw. There's finishing tools like files and rasp and sandpaper, and then you have to wax and polish. So there's all types of tools needed to work in wood. This is an example of what I would use to do a sculpture. This is Bermuda cedar. There's the inside of it, and showing the rough part of it. And to do a sculpture, I'd have to put it into a vise. Now, the most important tool of a wood sculpture is this gouge. They come in various sizes and various shapes. You see one that's wider and one that's shorter, depending on the use of it. This is a wooden mallet, and it's used for hitting the gouge. This is called a fordham, and it also is a grinding tool, and it helps us to shape. All these modern tools we have at our disposal to make shaping the wood much easier, quicker and easier. This is a rasp, and it's a grinding tool. It's very useful for making things smoother and also for shaping.
This is the shaping and smoothing grind. It works like a rasp.
Almost every item needs some machine work and some hand work. If I'm doing a carving, I do have a machine that I could use to carve away the wood. So that's why we have as many machines as we have. Most of everything we do nowadays is needing some machine work. It takes a lot shorter time using machines than just doing it all by hand. So we tend to try to get it done as quickly as we can by utilizing all the machines that we can use. Everything that goes on the lathe, most of the time, has holes on the bottom. This is one of the items that hold it on the lathe. This is a friendship goblet. And we would take the chisel and we go in there and we would move all of that material that's in there. Then we come the back side and we do the same thing, and that would make a ring. We would take the ring and we would tape it to the bottom so we could finish the neck of the cup. And then we would go in here and we would finish cutting out the inside of the cup like that. And then once we finish doing that, we polish, sandpaper and polish, all while it's spinning, right? The ring normally is the first thing we sandpaper to get it completed. Polishing is with shellac. This is the polish. Put it on like that. See how the color's coming from? Turn the material the speed you need to be able to get it perfectly round and nicely shiny.
Another very necessary tool would be a handsaw. And I'll make what we call a stop cut. And from the stop cut, we will use the mallet and the gouge to create shapes. However, in this modern age, we have modern tools. Here we have a bandsaw. Basically does the same as the handsaw, except that it's much easier and quicker. This is a very dangerous tool because if the blade breaks or something like that, it could, you could be injured. But I've never been injured so far with this. But, so if you're careful enough, you're quite safe. But there are some instances which you wouldn't use the heavy-duty bandsaw. You'd have to use the handsaw. If it was too small to hold, for example, because it'd be dangerous. Unfortunately, Michelangelo didn't have the use of one of these tools, but if he had one, I'm sure he could have done much more than he actually did.
We work with all sorts of woods. You name it, if it's wood, we'll work with it. The ones that I like to work with is the Bermuda cedar because of its hardness and it works nice.
Bermuda cedar is very difficult wood to sculpt in. It is very brittle, for one thing, and it's unpredictable. One part of the wood could be quite hard, another part could be very soft. The grain doesn't run true like other woods. The grain makes different turns and shapes that you didn't expect sometimes.
The thing I like about cedar is it's a wood that there's no two pieces alike. Okay, you've got about 14 different forms of cedar. In Bermuda, yeah. If you go up Whale Bay West and get a cedar tree up there, it's light, almost like tiki light. And then if you come down in Warwick, around Cedar Hill, it's red. And if you come down like along the South Shore, and what happens is that the cedar trees that grow on the seashore, they get lots of beaten from the salt because the prevailing wind is southwest wind. If you get and you find bird's eye, the nuts are really dark, but the wood is very light because the wind knocks the branches off and it's like scar tissue. And if you go like in Devonshire, anywhere there's like a valley and you got big trees, big knolls, but the bird's eye that's in it, it's almost like black currants, almost like polished peppercorns, I'd say, But it's wonderful to work with it because there's so many different qualities. When hurricanes or high winds, whatever, that knocks the branches off, and then it's like scar tissue. The oil goes back into the wood itself, It's like a healing process. In Devonshire, the trees grow high, grow tall, so when the tops get knocked off, you see these big knolls. And that knoll, it's almost like scar tissue, and in principle, that's bird's eye.
Bird's eye cedar is very, very expensive because it's so scarce. I tend to think the bird's eye is like a flaw. It's a diseased tree, but looks pretty when it's planed and sanded and polished. It's not often you find it. And normally when we find it, we save it, keep it, hide it, store it, stack it, wherever, just to keep it away from everybody's hands. It's a beautiful piece of wood. The grains in the wood comes from a lot of things. The way the wood is fed, the way the wood grows. Even the atmosphere stuns the growth of a tree. And because of that, it could change the grain. Like for instance, the grain of a cedar tree that grows on the water side is stronger, harder, redder, tighter, has a prettier color, and also has a stronger smell. The reason is because the salt spray that you have on our shores stuns the growth of the tree. To grow fast, it needs a lot of fertilizer, which a tree on the water side doesn't have. It needs a lot of water. The tree on the water side doesn't have that much water, but it has a lot of salt spray. And salt is the item that tends to stun its growth. So it has to fight through that salt spray, and because it's fighting, it takes a longer time for it to grow. A tree that is grown in the marsh grows quick because it's fed, it has a lot of food, it has a lot of water, and it's softer. It also has a lot of flaws. So all of our trees do tend to have a fighting chance to grow because of our salt spray. It covers the whole island.
Bermuda cedar is very similar to the cedar that we import from Virginia. The Bermuda cedar is a much harder wood. It seems to have a greater aromatic scent to it, and it has a much better finish when it's waxed and polished. But of course, Bermuda cedar is not easy to find. Now, when we have a hurricane, now and then a cedar tree gets blown down. For building purposes, we have to use American cedar. The Bermuda cedar is much more expensive, but there's still some available. And I got a chance to buy it, and in some cases, people give it to me. I personally use Bermuda cedar for all my work. So I've been very fortunate so far with obtaining cedar. And I think I have enough to last me for a while.
When it comes to me having cedar, I used to tell people that I would go broke to buy cedar because it's the lifeblood of our business. Well, times are hard, and I've had to turn away some people selling cedar. Wood that's cut down today takes a long time to cure, so we can't use it. During the blight, they cut down a lot of cedar. Actually, they did us a favor, because what wood they cut down, we were able to use right away in my generation because it was already cured. If it was growing, we can't use it for 6, 7, 8 years. Depends on the size of the log. And I tell people if it's green, I can't buy it, can't afford it. It's too expensive because I can't use it until it's cured. Curing can be done several ways. Bermuda allows it to cure naturally because we don't have kilns that you can put the wood in, heat them to a certain temperature, and it draws the moisture out of them. We don't have that in Bermuda. So we have to leave them out and let the air and the sun cure them naturally. That's why they take a lot of time. And I normally recommend an inch a year, or really a half an inch a year. No matter how much diameter the tree is, that's what I normally recommend. When Emily came through, the Hurricane Emily, it did us another favor. It knocked down a lot of cedar trees. And it took 8 years to use those, or to be able to use them for the type of items we need them for: furniture, doors, windows, sashes, souvenirs.
I've also worked in fiddlewood. Bermuda has some very nice ebony trees. People don't realize that. And mahogany grows here. I've used them all. Out of all the other Bermuda woods, I still prefer Bermuda cedar. Because it's Bermudian, and I'm Bermudian, and I think that if I lived in England, I'd work with oak, and if I was living in Africa, I'd work with ebony. But I live in Bermuda, so Bermuda cedar it is.
I worked as a shipwright for about 7 years, gaining that experience. In the 60s, fiberglass came, and so all the shipwrights kind of died off. You know, not died off, but it was a dying out worldwide, really. Then it was '89, and we started this business, and we made 10 boats and cedar and string art, and we went to the clock towers just to see if we can sell some more stuff. When we got there, we saw at the 10 boats, they were like $150 each. And my son used to do lots of carving, so he used to make a lot of the parts, small parts, and I would make the boats. We kind of improvised. But he left and went to school and stayed. So I've taken it from the string art to what it is now. I've got a few designs myself. I just make them of my own accord, yeah. You know, what it is, it's, you know, art's, you know, it's art's eternal innovation. You're always learning. What has happened with model making, it's come down to where they mass produce and make kits. You know, you can buy a kit, and they have professional modelers that are able to put kits together. That's the difference, you know.
What I see that is happening today is the young apprentice Once they learn a few items, a few things, learn how to do the basic, they think they know it all. When I was young, there were a lot of big jobs that were hanging around. I could have went out and made a lot of money, but that's not what I wanted. I knew eventually I was going to be in my own business. That's where I wanted to be. So I had to learn it all. So I gave up the big money to get the knowledge. And once I got the knowledge, most of the time, when those big jobs were over, the people that were there getting the big money came to me looking for a job. Because now I had the work. You see? So sacrificing to learn the basic and learn all about it was the key.
What I do is I have an idea that I want to express, and then I look for a piece of wood that I can use to express that idea. When I create a sculpture, I'm not depending on the shape of the wood. In fact, most of the wood I use comes in the form of a log, which doesn't tell you anything.
And then you say, well, what am I going to do with this log of cedar, you know?
The most difficult thing is the concept of what one wants to do. The wood doesn't tell me anything. When I decide to work on a particular piece, usually I use Bermuda as my inspiration. You'll find the fish in all my sculptures are fish that were caught locally. The birds that I do are, for the most part, local birds. And I have several whales around, and they're the ones that go past Bermuda, like the humpback, for example. For the most part, I'm inspired by Bermuda objects, Bermuda nature.
It's very difficult to decide what you really want to do to express what you want to say. It's easy to copy something else that's already been done, but to think of something that's particularly you and nobody else, that's the most difficult part. And that's where an artist comes in. An artist usually does something that is just that artist's work and nobody else's.
The most difficult thing is the concept of what one wants to do. When you know what you want to do, it's much easier.
My greatest challenge is to keep the bills paid. Yeah, it's not so easy nowadays because when it comes to cedar furniture that we specialize in, most of the customers are dying out, sorry to say. They already got what they're looking for, and their family is not interested in the cedar items anymore. You know, the children of today don't want the old items of yesterday. Although the items of yesterday last lifetimes, they want something more ornate, you know, more chrome and glass type. We have a hard time trying to get the bills paid because we're looking for people that love cedar and love to have cedar in their homes. So the last item we made was windows for an old house that trying to keep the character there. But today, aluminum windows, PVC windows, that's the big thing now. I think there is always going to be a need, but not as great as it used to be. Because in the olden days, cedar was the easiest thing to get your hands on. When they found out how durable it is, how long it lasts, then it became popular. And once it became popular, the price went up. And today, the price is at its highest because of the economical situation we have. And because of that, not too many people's really that interested in that anymore. So if they could buy something that give them a couple of years gratification, that's it. They are our proudest piece. Government commissioned us to do 2 chairs that were sent to Prince Charles and Lady Di on their wedding, and we did them.
In 2006, I did a piece for Princess Anne, and she was here from the Bermuda government. So I was quite happy and proud about that piece.
I have a piece at City Hall car park, which is called When Voices Rise. And I have another piece at Barr's Wharf, which represents the slaves just arriving in Bermuda. I guess I'm best known for the large pieces. The number one piece would be the sculpture at the airport, which I call Bermuda Nature. The bottom third of it is marine life. Every fish that I could think of that swims in Bermuda waters is there. The middle portion of it is plant life. There's Easter lilies and oleander trees and all types of Bermuda plants. Birds such as the bluebird, the redbird, and some of the smaller birds, all represented in the middle portion. And the top third is seabirds, seagulls, and that type of thing. I figured it would be about a year to complete. But actually, I got enthusiastic about the piece, and I did it in about 9 months. When I first started to work in wood, there was a well-known artist in Bermuda whose name was Charles Lloyd Tucker, who encouraged me to exhibit at the Art Center, and we had a show together many years ago, and that was the beginning of working in sculpture. He was a painter, a well-known oil painter. So he encouraged me quite a bit. I don't think I would have gone as far as I have without his help.
My name is Amy Zanders, and I guess I'm an artist in Bermuda, trying to find as many things as possible to do and learn while I'm here. My medium is silk screening and weaving, so making baskets and weaving on a loom and things of that nature. But I love everything and I want to do everything. So one of the things was woodworking, which I really enjoyed. I met Milton once at an art opening, and we were both part of the same show, and he had all these wonderful boats, and it was one of the first shows I saw when I came back. I'm like, I really want to do this. I really want to learn how to make this. Be careful what you wish for, because as luck would have it, I get to work with Milton and learn how to do this, and it's fantastic. He's very relaxed and very calm, so if I feel like I'm making a huge, big mistake, it's kind of like, no worries, we'll fix it. I need that and sort of like, oh no, I'm really going to mess up because I'll turn into a nervous wreck. So it's a calming atmosphere where you want to go, you want to learn, you want to do it, and you have to learn on the spot. It's kind of like baptism by fire. For me, it's a learning experience of getting the wood from the raw and cutting it and turning it into something. An actual boat. All of it's a challenge because it's the first time I've ever done anything like it. So each stage you go through, it's like, I don't know how to do this. The next phase, it's always difficult, so it's always a challenge. There's nothing simple about it. It's just like cutting and filing and sanding until we get the desired piece that we need. And just trying to develop that sort of eye where you can see where things are crooked or where it's too much on one side or where you need to shave off. It's just doing it, getting your hands dirty, getting a feel for it, and it's doing all of those and experiencing it. That's what's the most enjoyable thing about it.
This location has been operational since around 1945. We've had several apprentices. In fact, when I came and took over the shop, our staff was about 9, 10 people, and 6 of them were apprentices, and they're going on to do other things. The part that I enjoy the most, believe it or not, is solving problems. I'm a problem solver. I could look at the way someone's approaching a job and tell them that they're going to do it wrong and stop them. I think that's the thing I like the most. Even other than building an item, I like to be able to show people and tell people how to do it the right way. And I enjoy that because I'm good at that. I'm real good at that because I've had a lot of practice. When it comes to my job, I just like to help people do things right.
I would love to learn how to make different ships, boats. I want to make marionettes. I want to make a loom because I can't find one. And yeah, I just want to learn how to do everything. I want to go into furniture and make a chest out of cedar. Pretty much anything that can be made, I would love to learn how to make it. And that's why it's great working with Milton, because he knows how to make everything. He's like MacGyver.
I'm doing rigging right now, right? This boat is all a boat or a clipper. The boom is adjustable and it's on pulleys, so that's the way it's rigged. If you look, you'll see that I use black beads for my rigging, primarily because it's difficult to make the little cedar ones. It's hard on the fingertips. These usually take about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to rig. If you had a kit, all of these little things would be in it. This is cedar as well, but it's the white bark from the tree, and it bends quite easily. And the bowsprit is done with the same thing, and everything is functional. The rudder, independent. Everything's made to fit in. All of this, it's about 3 different types of wood in there. The cabin is independent, and the deck is independent. And all the little parts I make, all the booms, the spreaders, yeah, everything is handmade.
Behind me is the boat that we've been working on since August, and I guess it's still a work in progress. We still have a few things to finish on it, but this is what we've been doing. The ship itself is called the Bragdo, and it's the ship that my great-grandfather came to Bermuda on. It's kind of like a family heirloom. I'm gonna put it in my house and something to pass on, you know, to my children, and it's a very personal thing for me, and it's part of my family lore. It's kind of been something that I've always grown up with, and to actually build it, it's great. My children used to come with me because they're kind of pokey like that, like, where's Mommy again? And so they'll come here, and because they have woodworking in school, a lot of it they already knew, so they were just like helping me out. And instead of the other way around, really. I shouldn't say that, but they were a big help in putting things together and learning from Milton as well, you know, gathering the wood, gluing things together, drilling, just to make things a little bit easier and quicker. They helped out with the ship, and they helped out with the flooring. They're pretty good. They're really good. My daughter's now 13, my son is 12, but at the time they were 11 and 12. And my niece would come over as well. She was making a doll with Milton, like a little marionette, and that's gonna be cool if she finishes. My daughter made a bow and arrow as well, and that's pretty special to her, so yeah. Hopefully they'll be down more and making more things.
When my first grandchild came along, who's now going to college, when she was born, I made her wooden toys. I made quite a number of them. Most of them were all in cedar, and so I got to doing cedar toys. They were very cute. All my grandchildren have a collection of pull toys that I've made. I don't know of any other persons in the family who do the type of art that I do. I have a grandson who's interested in learning, but he hasn't really done too much as yet. I also teach at the prison. I've been doing that since 1976, I think it was. So I've been up there quite a long time. This is when Casemates was in existence. Now I teach at Westgate, of course. I find it quite rewarding to teach the fellows. You know. I have to go through quite stringent security, for one thing. I find that the prisoners themselves are very anxious to come out and work at my workshop there. It's quite an experience. They do the similar sort of thing that I do. They make small sculptures in cedar. They make boxes, picture frames, any items that they can make a few dollars out of, and also send presents to their parents or girlfriends or whatever.
And I have some very good students who are working there, and hopefully they'll come out of jail and continue to do wood sculpture. That's the whole object of my teaching there in the first place. So I'm hoping that they'll continue to work. I think we'll see many locals doing wood sculptures in the future.
Many, many years ago, they used to sing and dance all the way from Somerset to St. Jude. They used to sing and dance as they went along, singing a happy but a teasing kind of song. What they singing, man? They go like, all the way from Mangrove Bay. That's where all the old maids stay. All the way to Crowland Cider. Nothing there but foolish pride. What you say? Spanish Point, half a gallon and half a pointer, all the way to Devonshire Point, brackish water and rotten corn. Man, you say that's funny, man. They used to sing and dance as they went along, yes, singing a happy but a teasing kind of song. Yeah, man. All the way to Baylor's Bay, fish and taters